Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with smoked salmon roast salmon. That's right, this incredibly successful experiment involved wrapping usually very boring farm salmon with smoked salmon to make it taste more like richer, more expensive wild salmon. And for a first-time attempt, I was beyond thrilled with how this came out. Okay, I loved the texture and the flavor, and it kind of sort of tasted like we grilled it. So if you enjoy salmon, or just super easy, great tasting recipes in general, you are going to love this. And to get started, the first thing we'll need is a couple never very exciting pieces of farm salmon. And of course, we always want to ask for 2 pieces that are center cut and the same size, and also have them remove the pin bones and the skin for you, which they will do. And the first step here is to season the top with some salt, as well as some freshly ground black pepper, and of course a few shakes of cayenne. And by the way, don't be too aggressive with the salt, since of course smoked salmon has a good amount of saltiness to it. But to make up for it, you can be as aggressive with the cayenne as you want. And then once seasoned, what we'll do is spread a little bit of melted butter over the top, which you'll want to do fairly quickly, since as soon as that butter hits the cold salmon, it's going to solidify, which might make it a little trickier to spread. But you know what? I think you'll be fine. And then after the butter, I decided to sprinkle on some fresh herb. And I went with the always very fish-friendly fresh dill, which works great with regular salmon, but also really well with smoked salmon. But having said that, tarragon would also have been a great choice. But either way, what we'll do next is take some thinly sliced smoked salmon, and we will drape that over the top of these fillets. And in a perfect world, this would be sliced in perfectly shaped rectangles, big enough to cover our salmon with one piece. But unfortunately, they're still working on the perfect world. And I hear they're getting close, but for now, we're probably going to have to piece a couple of these slices together to get almost, if not full coverage. And yes, any small pieces like that should be removed and eaten. And my instincts just to do one layer of smoked salmon ended up being a good decision. Okay, I was thinking of doing a double layer to maybe get a better looking surface, but once roasted, I think that might have been too much. And we'll talk more about that later. But the point is, one thin layer on top is all you need. And that's it. Once prepped, I popped those in the fridge, and I moved on to prepping the baking dishes. And I really love these long, shallow ramekins for cooking seafood. All right, I just think they look cool. It makes it easy to serve. And we could just roast our salmon in these alone, but I'm actually going to transfer in some mashed potato, and then place the fish on top for what's basically going to be like a reverse fish pie. And yes, I probably should have searched the online dictionaries first, before using the phrase in a video. So hopefully it doesn't mean anything else. But anyway, I love seafood baked with mashed potatoes on top, so I knew I was going to love this. And that's it. I went ahead and placed my salmon over the top. And I made sure it was nicely nestled in. And then once that was accomplished, I went ahead and transferred these onto a small baking sheet, just to make these things easier to get in and out of the oven. And as I was looking at this, I was really wondering how that top surface was going to look once these were baked. All right, my fear was that smoked salmon on top was going to kind of shrivel up and basically break apart and not look very good. So I did what I do every time I'm a little bit insecure about what the top of something's going to look like. I shake over a little bit of cayenne. And that's it. These were now ready to transfer into the center of a 400-degree oven for exactly 20 minutes, assuming your fillets are exactly 7.5 ounces each and you're cooking them on mashed potatoes. But anyway, I cooked mine for 20 minutes. At which point they look like this, which to be honest was better than I thought they would look. All right, we have a seam or two here and a couple gaps there, but all in all I was very happy with the appearance. But there are very few appearances that don't look even better brushed with melted butter, especially if we're talking about roasted fish. So I doused those generously. And since I wasn't going to serve these with a sauce, I didn't feel bad about that at all. And then to finish up the garnishing portion of the program, I scattered a few freshly sliced green onions on the potato. And then I could have served it just like that. But apparently I was still feeling a little bit insecure about the appearance of the top, since I gave those one last dusting of cayenne. And I do like that little bit of heat it brings, but it also helped produce a deeper, darker orange color. And that's it. I went ahead and served that up, very, very simply, with just some fresh squeezed lemon over the top. And that, my friends, checked every single box I'd hoped to check when I started this experiment for how to make never exciting baked farm salmon into something slightly more thrilling. And the first checkbox was a superior texture, right? Something a little more moist and juicy and unctuous than what we would typically expect. And that was absolutely the case, which is not really surprising, because when you wrap things before you roast them, that almost always helps prevent them from drying out. Of course, having said that, I didn't overcook these, which is kind of key. But anyway, texture-wise, I was extremely, extremely happy. And then as far as the flavor goes, I find wild salmon generally has a rich, fattier taste, which is why that's what I try to buy when I can. But sometimes it's just not available, or it's crazy expensive. But roasting this with that thin but rich layer of smoked salmon on top really did seem to push things in that direction. Plus, as I mentioned in the intro, thanks to that little bit of smokiness in the cured salmon, the flavor was reminiscent of something that would come off a grill. So I really did think this worked on every level. Speaking of which, I think this technique is going to be very versatile. All right, we could do this with different flavored butters, and of course different herbs, not to mention other spices and seasonings. And there's actually a fairly wide variety of different types of smoked salmon, as well as we could switch up what we put under the salmon. All right, instead of potatoes, we could do roast vegetables, or rice, or noodles, or you get the idea. So please, as usual, feel free to explore all the opportunities. I mean, you are, after all, the John Madden of your smoked salmon, roast salmon. And speaking of great coaching, let me once again stress the most important part of this game plan. Do not overcook the salmon. Right? You don't want to cook this until it's rock hard. Okay, it should just spring back to the touch. Or of course, use a thermometer and shoot for something that's about 135 to 140 internal temp to enjoy salmon in all its glory. But anyway, that's it. What I'm calling smoked salmon, roast salmon. Since this was a first-time experiment, there might be a few things I finesse later, like different ways to lay that salmon over the top. But anyway, other than a few very minor tweaks, I absolutely loved everything about this, which is why I really do hope you give this a try soon. So please follow the links below for the ingredient amounts, a printable written recipe, and much more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.